New skills, rearmed heroes, and busted duos. The power creep this year has been insane, but is it worse than last year? So good to talk with you again, PM1. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and it's a real pleasure to be back here discussing power creep, our favorite topic, and also the favorite topic among FEH players for sure.
Definitely. It just consumes Twitter and Reddit. I really want to dig into this, but I think it's best to go back and remind ourselves what exactly happened last year. And now we have from Seer's Snare and skill negating mythics to arena tickets and otherworldly bonds. I have to ask, what do you feel is the biggest thing to happen last year?
I definitely think rearmed heroes are the biggest thing, at least for me, because giving the arcane weapons to the old favorites definitely brings new life to them, even though, they're going to be absolutely getting stomped by the new units. At least it's something, and the mechanic of rearmed heroes and how they don't die after being foddered is extremely good and can be used as a skill bank. So I think rearmed units have definitely been the favorite part of this past year for me.
I have to agree. My only issue with rearmed units is that they make me spend orbs, and I hate that.
Yeah, I wish they were in the normal summoning pool. I don't see why they are not in there.
We're about to go into the ranking system, but first, let us know in the comments what caused the most power creep in this last year. I'd love to know from you guys. This year, instead of the Edelgard scale, because we didn't get a new Edelgard, we have the Tiki Tally. I cannot believe there are 3 Tikis just from this year in this scale. But first off, we have Summer Tiki at the bottom, and this was when seasonals weren't meant to be good, they were just meant to be neat art. We have Brave Tiki at 2 stars, and I think we can all agree she's unique. We have Legendary Tiki up next, is generally usable and a decent role player. Ascendant Tiki is meta influential in a variety of modes, and of course we have Bridal Harmonic Tiki, who is just the meta shaper. PM1, who is your favorite Tiki?
Definitely Brave Tiki, but poor Brave Tiki is chilling at 2 stars, so yeah, I think she's definitely going to be eating well.
That's interesting though, I didn't realize that was going to be your favorite. One more note before we continue, we'll be ranking both skills and units from each month, and I've cut the rankings down to 6 months instead of the whole year. The yearly view will be at the end, but PM1 is a busy person, and 3 hours of recording is probably too long. Any final words before we begin?
Actually, no. I'm just excited to be here and discussing power creep with you again. It seems like this is going to be our yearly tradition that we do.
It seems like it, yeah. So, let's start with March and the absolute chaos that went on. Looking at the units from Gen 6, now I've just picked the highlights from the month. Which of these units do you think shaped the meta most? Because these are all really good.
I think Spring Sonia definitely did, because I still remember when she came out, she used to be like a top tier Summoner Duels unit, and she's still really good. So I think definitely Spring Sonia. And now looking back at it, seeing Ascendant Marita is just a bit sad to me, because we have got so much that just absolutely stomps her. And then Legendary Nana, I think, gets better as we get more damage reduction. She's still really good. So Spring Sonia was definitely, I think, the meta shaping unit from March.
I feel like she shaped the warping meta that was to come. Like, it's we should have known that trouble was coming from her.
Absolutely. She had the Rearmed Tana movement before Rearmed Tana.
Yeah. Clearly we gave this group 5 stars. They are just incredibly strong. Absolutely loved them. Let's talk just briefly about the skills here, though. I'm pretty sure Nudge wasn't the highlight, but you talked about Marita, and we had OG Marita, who really brought the meta, the Omni tanking meta into play at the time with Close Call. Now we have Ascendant Marita with Vital Astra. How key was Vital Astra in bringing us into the Omni tank meta that we see today?
I think having a special that speedsters could use was absolutely something that a lot of people theory crafted in earlier years of FEH. So finally having an inheritable special that scaled off speed was absolutely insane, and giving the damage reduction on top of it is just a cherry. So Vital Astra, I think, definitely pushed us towards that meta, and it was just preparing us for the God Swords. that we have now.
It really reminds me of like the early days of FE. I remember there were big discussions on how speed wasn't very valuable because it was so digital. Either you had +5 and doubled, or you didn't and you didn't double. And suddenly, I mean, with the close call skills, we started getting that, but I feel like Vital Astra is really what drove us to making speed incrementally better. Like it's good if you even had 1 or 2 speed better than your other unit.
Yeah, and just stacking up a lot of damage reduction became, even more of a thing with Vital Astra, I feel like.
Isn't that crazy that in order to have a good tank, you need like 7 different types of damage reduction? The rating on this is clearly 5 stars. Obviously, we talk about Nudge and that wasn't great, but Vital Astra was so key to this month. I mean, it was just a huge thing for the meta in general. Moving on to Gen 7 though. Now, these units are less impressive in themselves, but Tana as a rearmed unit was incredibly influential. Who is your favorite rearmed unit for skill duplication?
Most likely like rearmed Tana, because like she has guidance 4, so that is invaluable, and I don't want to fodder off Ivy for soaring guidance, so definitely Tana. Even though she's not that insane as a unit, still like guidance 4 is just absolutely nuts, and I wonder if we're going to be getting a warping skill that can let Cavaliers warp.
The skills here, these are all really, really good, but we have to talk about Guidance 4. Is there a skill that took over the meta faster than Guidance 4?
I think the only one I can think of is probably Hardy Fighter back when it came out. That's the only one that can rival Guidance 4, and I really regret missing on like Rearmed Tana because I was saving orbs for something else. Because like Guidance 4 is like the skill to have for the meta, for Aether Raid's defense, for Summoner Duels, obviously. Summoner Duels are. So I think it's insane, and I think only Hardy Fighter can like rival it in terms of how meta influential it was.
I think you hit it right on the head. I've heard a lot of folks saying that Guidance 4 was this year's Hardy Fighter, and I could not agree more. This is clearly a 5-star month just from Guidance 4 alone. This was absolutely incredible, and I can't say enough good things about Guidance 4. I even use it on air offense on my Peony and Plumeria, and it's phenomenal. Looking at the tally, did you expect Gen 6 to come to a commanding lead this early?
I actually did not, but Guidance 4 definitely carrying Generation 7 on its back, and also a little bit of Spring Carla, I feel like, because using a lot of Conga line, I feel like Spring Carla is the kind of unit that really shatters a lot of melee frontliners and near saves, and I think she's probably going to be getting better as we move on with like more of the maps.
Well, and in particular, shattering a Brave Dimitri, who had really been dominant in the meta and has just now started to see a fall off. So I am a big fan of Spring Carla, and I think you're right. I think she's sneakily gaining value. But I have more to talk on melee calves and where they're at shortly. I do want to head into the kid banners. Generation 6. We have Medius, and the deletion of the Bolt Tower made player phase strategies so much harder. But I want to get into him in a second. I want to talk about Ascendance, and I am so surprised that those kind of dropped off. Like, they kind of replaced those with rearmed units. And I'm wondering if you think we'll get a new unit type this year and what it'll be.
Yeah, we're about to get our 1000th hero, so maybe they could introduce a new type. So I'm not sure. But yeah, it definitely seems like rearmed units were better received than the Ascended units, because rearmed units can really provide you with like so much more value than just the Floret. Moving on to the skills here, because I don't want to beat young Ike up any more than I already have. Medius and Kanto control were such an obvious shot to the player phase strategies that you absolutely love. Tanks are a lot easier to sell than the player phase strategies, I feel like. Because clearly enemy phase strategies are a lot more popular, and Bolt Tower was getting increasingly annoying, honestly, at that point. So they had to bring in something to shut it down, and also Kanto was also being a wild aspect in the game. So Medius was the equalizer that we kind of needed, and I still see people using Medius even on like their anima defenses so that they don't have to get bothered by the Bolt Tower of the enemies.
I've seriously considered it. I have an open slot right now, and I've been staring at it longingly. So we'll see. I might put Soren in there instead, though, because I really like the way he works. But we're gonna get to him. Blue Feud is underrated, and we forget how influential that was just because it wasn't as widespread. But Brave Hector was still a thing at this point, and Blue Feud helped a ton with that. It's interesting to see this fall off, but I mean, we still have to give this 5 stars. Like, this was a phenomenal batch of skills just because of Kanto control that influenced at least ARD and especially Summoner Duels. Just absolutely rocked the meta there. Do you remember when it was rare?
Oh yeah, I do remember. And suddenly we just started getting more Kanto control, and Mikoto had her 1 month of limelight before Medius came in. I remember.
I do. Moving on to Gen 7 though, I really love this bunch. Like, I like these units a lot. I feel like they were just shy of meta shattering, which was good. I use Mark a lot, and I love young Hector. I haven't foddered him for Armored Beacon, although I know a lot of folks have. What happened with Nerthus though? I don't understand this unit.
I think they just want to have a player phase mythic, and honestly I still like Nerthus for what she enables. I think she's a really good like cleanup unit, but kind of misses the mark when it comes to taking out near saves. But a lot of times, like, she doesn't have to, because she can just initiate and just fall in the Wings of Mercy, and we can just have the units come in. So I think for that aspect, Nerthus is still really good, but just not like insanely meta influential like Thor was in a way for Astro Season back when she came out. So that's what is pretty much up with Nerthus, but I still really enjoy using her a lot as a Gale Force player. I think she has everything that you could ask for in a Gale Force initiator, except for killing Brave Beetle Guards. But yeah.
I'm waiting for one thing to call her good, and that's the Wings of Mercy seal. Do you think that's around the corner?
I think anything can happen when we can get Bullfighter and Distant Counter Dragon. So any skill is possible, honestly, at this point. It just depends on what they get on their roulette.
Very true. We have 3 stars for this, which, keep in mind, this is a very solid banner, and I think Nerthus will have more value going forward, but that's a guess more than a prediction. Looking at the skills though, I love Armored Beacon. I feel like this was the answer to Far Savior prayers. How do you feel like it shifted the meta though?
I definitely feel like it's really helpful for a lot of the ranged Far Save tanks, because finally they can have something. But a lot of times I felt like having Hardy Fighter would have helped my unit survive much better. But maybe I'm just using the lower merge units. I think Armored Beacon and Armored Flow are better if you have like more merges on your armor unit. But yeah, this is definitely an amazing skill, and it's really good to have a skill that, you know, can be used in arena and on range like armor units.
The big thing for me, I'm an ARD fanatic. Like, making defenses is just really fun for me, and having a skill that could be active on that turn 1 was just huge for me, and really helped my saviors in that respect.
Oh yeah, absolutely, it does help.
The sabotage skills though have been very quiet, and I'm curious your take on how powerful they are.
I think they are really, really amazing, but they have this kind of tendency of slowing down some kind of skills. We never really see too many skills of a certain type, and then they just remember, oh, this skill exists, and then we get all of the types. I think that happens many times.
Anyway, I think we have to rank this 5 stars just for Armored Beacon. I think that was absolutely amazing. Moving on to the tally here. Now we still have Gen 6 in a commanding 5-point lead after being carried by Medius. But we do have a shift coming up. What happened to Gen 6? We have Myrrh, who at the time was bad, but has seen a bit of a resurgence because of Warp Bubble and Dragonlock skills. We have Roy, who, as a melee cav, Roy and Ellawood kind of fell flat. What do you think IS was thinking here?
Probably not repeating Fallen Edelgard, in my opinion. And I do think that Fallen Rhea really got better as we got the Scout skill. I think that was the one thing that she really needed at the time of release. Dying to like Deadeye of Duochrome was the big thing back then.
Yes.
I think just having that Weary Fighter effect in her weapon kind of muddies the water a bit, because you want to kill the opponents. You don't want to let them survive and then trigger their Wings of Mercy. So I think that happens a lot with Fallen Rhea. And I think this month was really influential with more of these skills than the units, as we had Speed Smoke, which is just another way of stacking up damage reduction. And we finally had Defense Res Unity, which we didn't have for the longest time. And Still Water is still an amazing skill for any kind of slower AoE user. So I think skill-wise this month was pretty rich.
So I'm curious about the Speed Smoke skills, and we gave the units 1 star. I want to pick your brain about the smoke skills though, because I didn't feel like these hit as hard as I thought they were going to be. I was convinced these were going to just absolutely change things, and as we go on, I'm less and less impressed with them. Do you feel like they made a big change though?
I feel like Speed Smoke 4 definitely did, because we can just stack up so much damage reduction, and it's still used on a lot of like God Swords and any kind of speed tanking unit. So I feel like Speed Smoke kind of did, but like Attack Smoke didn't really as much, because we have so much null follow-up that a lot of times it just doesn't help having. So I think they kind of did, and they are not that meta influential, but still I think they have like a valuable space where they occupy in a lot of builds.
And this is not to say these skills are bad, but as meta influential, these sit at 1 star. And understand, I mean, Speed Smoke 4 is very, very fun. I still remember when it came out building my Speedy E-Tree, which was, I still use. I think that unit is a blast. Of course, Speed Creep has gotten to the point where she's not speedy anymore. But what do you do with that? But this is still a 1 star badge here. I want to talk about Gen 7 because these units blew me away. I could probably talk to you for 30 minutes on each one of these, but we don't really have the time for that. I want to start with Fallen Maria. And we have seen a huge shift towards survivability. How do you feel about IS and this push to make sure that units don't die in 1 hit?
It's pretty much again favoring enemy phase a bit, because surviving with a lot of the tanks, save tanks, is the thing with Fallen Maria. And it's probably to like print more colorless feud, because Fallen Maria is such a problem that we have so many people wanting colorless feud on their nukes. And even in like Ether Raid's defense, I really want to have like colorless feud on my Brave Crom, just so that I can Gale Force against these teams better. So Fallen Maria is absolutely insane. I think many people kind of underestimated her, because numbness does happen with the power creep. When we get too much of it, I feel like everything becomes like this is the new shiny thing. We should probably not bother, but like Fallen Maria was definitely pretty insane for any kind of game mode, and especially competitively.
I don't think that folks really saw the impact of Maria, and part of that's Emir's fault, because Emir's HP condition was so much worse than Maria's. But
I think Ymir does that thing where people stop rating Miracle as a good skill, because Ymir's thing is just so, conditionally active that it affects people's visualization of this. But I completely agree.
I absolutely love Hinoka, and particularly hit and run strategies have always been one of my favorites. And I feel like this unit has really brought them to the forefront. but I still don't see them a whole lot in the general player base. Do you think there's anything ever that's going to pull people off of end turning and take them to hit and run or Gale Force?
I think it's a matter of comfort, because as someone who has Gale Force a lot, like Gale Forcing is my comfort. I feel like weird tanking. So I think it's just a matter of, picking your comfort pick. And I think Legendary Hinoka was pretty insane for the hit and run aspect, because she can pretty much kill any kind of save unit. And I think she's what really incentivized the far save speedy armors in Summoner Duels, because her fire sweep is speed check. So if you're faster than Hinoka, then you can still, survive at the very least and not completely die if you have Hardy Fighter or Miracle. So I think she is definitely the queen of fire season, and we're about to see more Legendary Hinokas as she gets rerun.
Definitely, and I want to see more Wings of Mercy 4. Before we get to that, this is a clear 5-star group. How good is Tiki? Do you feel like she's the best savior in the game right now?
I think she definitely competes for that spot with Brave Corrin. And we also have Flared Sparrow for Legendary Hinoka, so that's another thing that she has got going now. So that is insane. Honestly, Bridal Tiki is up there with the far saviors. Like, she can survive so many things. They finally realized, like, if we make Brave Tiki as a armor unit, she would do so much better. So that's what they finally did.
Hurts my soul. This is, like I said, clear 5-star group. Let's get into the skills a little bit, and this was a really solid bunch. I think Wings of Mercy 4 is so underrated. I think attack speed solo, distant attack speed is amazing. Armored Flow is kind of an update. Then we've got these healer specials, and what do you think about those? Do you like these?
Oh yeah, I really love these healer specials because they let us hear these special codes. But I think it definitely gives the offensive power to these healers. Like, Fallen Maria can kill save tanks because of her Holy Pan, like with her specials basically. So I think it allows these healers to want the tempo skills a lot more, because they can actually kill stuff now with that special. So it gives them that little bit of offensive power that they were always missing from the start, kind of like how Wrathful Staff did. So I'm a big fan of the healer specials, honestly, being a Mercedes fan.
Wings of Mercy 4. Do you feel like we're about to see more of that with the Hinoka rerun?
I think for sure, and the reason why we don't see that is because it's on a Legendary unit, and not everyone has like 40 rearmed Ophilias to duplicate that. So I feel like that's the reason why we don't see it. But I think if it gets common on a lot of other units, it can definitely be an amazing skill. And Rain Snap is pretty underrated. It gets competition from Guidance 4 and Soaring Guidance, but I think it's such an amazing option to get the extra movement. And yeah, they need to make skill icons a lot more different.
Oh, we'll get to Flared Sparrow, but that's the one that drives me the most crazy. This was a 4-star group. Very solid. Really enjoyed these, and we actually have, because of the very poor Gen 6 banner here, we have Gen 7 taking over, as it should be. And I cannot agree with you more. Like, the minute you said it, the Fallen Edelgard paranoia, I think, is what really drove this change.
Yeah, for sure.
We're about to see one of your favorite things, though, and that is a Gale Force Revolution. I've got to say, I think this might be my favorite summer banner. I really enjoyed all of these units. Summer Edelgard I thought was such a fun design. Looking back at it though, how do you feel about IS giving us like a beginner level Gale Force unit?
I think we did have some of the Gale Force units, but yeah, not as easy as Summer Edelgard, because Summer Edelgard just goes in, she comes with the kit, and she's just absolutely insane in like any kind of role you can ask the armor unit from. And I think we see a lot less different design in armor units ever since we got the save skills. So it was a breath of fresh air to have a player phase armor unit after such a long time. And Summer Dimitri, Summer Claude, all of them were really amazing. Even Summer Micaiah. So it was an amazing banner overall, I think.
5 stars, clearly. Like, I loved this banner. I still think Summer Dimitri is quite good. The skills were a little less influential. I love Assault Troop so much, but we've seen this time and time again where IS kind of hides their skills and locks them away like on one unit. Which, are you going to fodder your summer Edelgard? When do you think these things are going to be more readily available? Things like Assault Troop.
I completely think you're giving them too much credit and they just forget it. I don't think they lock things away. I think they just forget it. It's like one guy whose job is to keep these skills in check and he just forgets. I think that's pretty much what's happening, because Assault Troop is still not there, because clearly they forgot to give this to Legendary Edelgard Remix. So I'm pretty sure they have this kind of forgetting attitude.
We got a lot of weird skills in Gen 6 that I have trouble finding a place for. Have you found a place for the Rouse skills?
Yeah, no, I don't think Rouse skills were really a hit, because it's just missing that one effect, and I think they realized that later on, and that's why we have the Alarm skills. Because Rouse skills, just the skills that want you to be solo, at its core is kind of against Fire Emblem, I feel like. It's like the thing that they had in FE for such a long time, like these solo skills, and I'm glad that they're moving away from that design, because it's just not the way to play the game, fairly in pretty much every single game mode. So I don't think Rouse skills really hit, and Alarm skills are pretty much the evidence that we need for Gen 7 that we have now.
Assault Troop alone gives us 3 stars, and Assault Troop was a solid skill, and I mean, we got a couple of other things like the Kanto skill here, and yeah, it wasn't a bad batch. But we're seeing kind of a melding of these nukes that also support. How do you feel about these multi-use units?
I think it definitely gives them more of a lifespan, because she was the first unit to introduce Discord as a status, and even though as a status it's not the most insane thing, I think it's still pretty useful. And if anything, Panic kind of helps the enemies because they bring Legendary Mid Robin and then they get the extra stats. So I think Shamir is definitely taking some bucks from the opponent on that side. But yeah, Duo Shamir is pretty insane, and just the damage reduction and Brash Assault 4 and everything that she's got in her kit is just so synergetic to kill a lot of the units, which is just amazing. And even though we're going to be getting a lot more faster units, I think she's still going to be functional as a pretty amazing nuke with what she does, and at least the support that she brings.
I'm a huge fan. I keep on expecting her to start to get old because of speed creep, but she hasn't yet. But I want to move on to melee calves, and this is the spot I wanted to talk about this, because to be completely honest, Summer Shez is ridiculous. There's a lot of killing power there. But if you look over the last year, really the only influential calves we got were Chrom and Seliph. What brings them back into the meta where they are consistently good again?
I think a lot of the meta revolves around these calves being absolutely insanely nuking with stuff like Summer Shez and Brave Seliph. So Summer Shez pretty much follows that pattern, and now she even has Flow Desperation, which in my opinion kind of makes her a bit better than Tea Time Ira, as much as I hate to admit that. But
you mean Tea Time Mercedes, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think Summer Female Shez is absolutely solid when it comes to nuking, and really hits the mark. And we have been seeing a lot of these cavalry nukes, with Spring Carla, with Summer Female Shez, now with Tea Time Ira. So that's pretty much what they're trying to do with the design of these Cavaliers, just making them insane nukes that are really hard to survive, and they just absolutely do not compromise when it comes to the firepower.
They definitely don't. I would love to see more of a Gale Force slant to them, and I'm surprised we haven't seen that yet. Especially they've given Saviors so many things. I think it's okay if you gave a complete Gale Force unit, and I feel like the last one we got was Chrom. I think Chrom is excellent at Gale Force, and I'm a little bit confused at why they haven't done that. I expected either Shez or Tea Time Mercedes to bring that to the meta.
Yeah, I would definitely love that. I think they kind of tried to do that with Nerthus.
Yes.
And they kind of did do it a bit successfully, I think, with Nerthus, giving her everything that he could want. But yeah, I would definitely love that. And yeah, in Gen 7, Haether also being an amazing mythic, and she's even better now that Elamine stocks are down. So we have a lot of low threat range teams coming up that Haether absolutely loves to set up against. You know, just chill, wait for her skill, and just use the rally skill and nuke the enemies and then run away. So I think Haether has gotten better with, you know, indirectly Elamine losing the value because of Freyr, and low threat range teams becoming a thing with Freyr, and a lot of catcher balls coming back in full force.
I'm not an everyday Gale Force user, but my Gale Force friends have just sung her praises as kind of the great equalizer. Summer Edelgard has fallen off just a bit. I mean, it's been a year, so that's to be expected. But I have folks that tell me that the way to keep Summer Edelgard relevant is Haether and that treachery skill.
Yeah, for a lot of Gale Force units, I think that she does the thing. Even with Brave Gulvig that we have now, Brave Gulvig inherently lacks the tools to bypass many of the far-safe tanks. But with Haether, I think it's perfectly lore-oriented how she can break through these far-safe tanks.
It's pretty fantastic. This group is 5 stars, clearly. I really enjoyed these guys. The skills were ridiculous for this month. I slept on the no follow-up skills. I don't remember your exact reaction to them. My guess is that you hit them right on the head because you normally do. I thought they were kind of meh. And after using them and seeing them used, I mean, is that the most influential set of skills in this month?
Yeah, I feel like that is definitely the most influential set because these are the best in slot skills for many of the nukes. Having, you know, null follow-up, debuffs, and also damage shredding is everything you can ask for. I kind of wish that this was like one skill instead of 2 skills, and it's just debuffed the resistance as well, because you have to fodder off another unit just for the skill. But yeah, magical and physical null follow-up are absolutely insane, and I'm glad that we have them in holo forms now. And I feel like Brash Assault 4 is also kind of underrated from this batch because when we had these magical null follow, physical null follow-ups, Brash Assault 4 was this kind of player phase skill that only worked in one phase, but it's insane with its damage reduction and damage reflection. It definitely took a lot of time to understand the skill because the description doesn't do any favors and it just stacks differently. Like, for example, a lot of people were thinking this would stack how E3 or Hans's damage reduction stacks, but it clearly does not. But even then, like, Brash Assault 4 is absolutely amazing for so many of the player phase units, and stacking up the damage reduction with something like Remote Sparrow is going to be making nukes like Duo Shamir such a big threat, even if they're just nuking and they're not even tanky.
Especially when you consider skills like Flared Sparrow, and having them survive in order to activate the terrain effects is just phenomenal. It's been interesting to see. It is so much harder to kill things as an end turner than it used to be. I do want to talk about these lull skills because I think these are really amazing, but I have seen absolutely none of them. What's up with that?
I think I do see them quite a bit and like whaled up Ether Raid's defenses, but yeah, aside from that, I don't really see these skills that much. I think they're pretty good, and it's just that we have so much competition in the slot B that a lot of times these are going to be competing with like null follow-up or like traces. So that's why it's kind of hard to justify them in many cases. And I think lull skills are absolutely amazing for Ether Raid's defense, so that's where they shine. And a lot of players are not gonna completely invest for just Ether Raid's defense, I feel like.
Why not? That's an amazing mode.
It gives no orbs, man.
All right. The rating for these is obviously 5-star. This was a fantastic batch of skills. I absolutely love them. And we have Gen 7 taking a commanding lead of 4 points. And this is more the way I thought this was going to go, but it's interesting that it took a bit to get there. I really want to hop into our next batch, though, because we have one of your absolute favorites in Gen 6 in Asker. What's your current build on Asker? Have you upgraded him to the new skills yet?
I have actually not upgraded him. I just use him with the Gale Force build, and I don't think we have had any kind of upgrade in terms of the player phase builds. Now he does have Counter Roar, so that is absolutely insane. And I think this month for Gen 6 was really meta defining because Asker coming in there after Ash as another colorless beast was just insane with the kind of utility that he brought with open domain for any kind of team composition. And we also had Duo Thor, who is like the meta influential unit for Summoner Duels back then. Her duo button erasing the visible status effects is absolutely insane, and I think she has fallen off a bit now with her nuking, but still her duo button at the end of the day is still really useful. So I think this month was absolutely amazing for Gen 6 units.
Okay, and that is such a great segue into what I wanted to talk about. So I think we're seeing the maximum shelf life for a unit here with Thor. Like about a year before they start to fall off. And that is not to say she's unusable, because that would be ridiculous. She's still a very good unit, but we're starting to see kind of that expiration date. There is a question that has been hotly debated, and I wanted to know your opinion on it. And that is Summoner Duels free to play friendly?
No, it's definitely not. I'd be lying if I said it is free to play friendly, because the meta changes like every 2 weeks. There's absolutely no way, unless you're like complete tryhard, that you can keep up with Summoner Duels. So I completely get why casual players don't play Summoner Duels, because it's really hard to keep up with. Because every time the map changes, every time we have some meta influential skill there. So I don't think it's free to play friendly, but it can be fun. If you know your definition of fun differs, then sure, it can be fun.
That's such a good point. And I actually got called out on my last meta report, and rightfully so. The person basically said that I was saying that cavalry were losing value when really they were staying the same, and it was the map.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to separate those two. Like that, the map is the meta in Summoner Duels.
Absolutely, and it just keeps on changing. So, one time you have these cavalry units absolutely beating everyone down, and then they are just like puppies the next map.
Oh man! But anyway, this is still clearly 5 stars. Ymir wasn't just absolutely meta influential, but she was really interesting, and I do love interesting units. Getting to the skills, this is less amazing, but I still absolutely love attack speed oath. I have to ask, like, how many arena matches have you lost because of this skill? Because it's a ton for me.
Yeah, too many to remember. The attack speed oath 4 duo daggers have ruined my life with their rallies. So I really hate and also love this skill because it's my favorite tier 4 skill. I just love the teleportation it enables. And Infantry Null Follow-Up was just a better skill to have, for passing on the Null Follow-Up status compared to Infantry Speed Tactic that we had with Brave Crom later on. So that's an amazing skill, and I think we're seeing a lot of it on top tier supports like Legendary Robin, even to this day.
This is a 3-star batch, which again, this is not saying it's bad. Like 3 stars is still really good, but there were definitely more influential things to come. So, Gen 7, and this is a crazy batch with a lot of implications. I mean, we had Fjorm, which was, I think she's amazing, but she's more of the same, a lot more of the same because of all the Omni tanks we've had. I think Ymir is criminally underrated, but I wanted to talk about Freyr. How do you think this unit is going to influence the meta long term? Are we going to see a bunch of him?
I think we're already seeing a bunch of him. So I've already seen a lot of the Aether defense teams in my friend list completely revamped with Freyr. He enables Dancer Traps, he enabled the Catcher Balls again, and just is just such a force of nature, literally, I mean, that he's going to be changing the meta for sure. And he's easily the best Anima Mythic, I feel like, because of the things that he opens up. Like, completely ignoring the isolation and false start is just insane. And it's not even like you have to use the low threat range team, so you can just have the Dancer Traps with high threat range teams. So I think he is going to be aging to be pretty good with his support. And yeah, Fjorm was everything that they could push in a infantry sword unit with null counter disrupt with distant counter. It's just absolutely insane. And I definitely have to agree with you on Summer Emir being really underrated. It's just that I think a lot of people have Duo Asker, so she kind of competes with that role, but she's still insanely tanky with the damage reduction and has amazing longevity with that ever-living domain and the healing that she can get. So this patch was also influential in Gen 7 for sure.
So we've got this at 4 stars, which I think is about right. I will say that there's a possibility that Freyr actually gains value depending on how well he plays with Soren as a near savior. And I'm seeing a lot of him during bonus season absolutely rock things, and as a savior in general, as a mythic, going out of bonus season is huge because those extra stats really mean something. But I think he might have room to grow. But these skills are really, really interesting to me because this is such a grab bag. I've seen more of a theme with these, and this is just, we're gonna throw everything out there and see how it goes. I guess I gotta ask a very divisive question here. Are you Team Guidance 4 or Team Soaring Guidance?
I think I'm definitely Team Guidance 4 because I feel like armor units need the mobility a lot more than the flying units. And I hate to kill IV, so definitely Team Guidance 4 because Riom Tana is immortal. So that's something.
Do you feel like the boost skills are going to actually be relevant?
I don't feel like they're going to be that relevant because they're competing with so much, but they're really cool skills to have that you can, finally have, because these boost skills were dead on arrival when they came out. So it's good to see them being completely revamped. And Flash Barrow is also another skill which kind of feel like how Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade should have been from the start. So it's good to see them changing the design of some of these skills. And then Spurn 4 was kind of expected. We're still waiting for Velocity 4. I felt like maybe we were going to get that in the Choose Your Legends, but clearly not. And yeah, another lull attack defense, and that too on a Ether 8's defense mythic unit goes perfectly well.
Looking at, this is a 4-star group, and like I said, this is a very good grab bag. We have a tie here, so we're not really changing anything, but we're creeping up, starting into the 40s now for the power creep. And we haven't hit the Braves yet, which are really, that is the banner every year, right? So let's move into that. I have to ask, is this CYL your favorite of all time?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I feel like Brave Seliph and Brave Chroma are such insane units that we had last year, and I definitely love Brave Chrome, but I think I like Brave Seliph a lot more, simply because of the insane power that he brings and the miracle that he has got. And Brave Chrome just stays as a meta-relevant unit because of being able to copy things. Now I see him being run with Summer Ephraim a lot more in my replays than with Brave Seliph. So that just shows you that he aged, better, I feel like. And this patch was also really amazing in terms of the skills because we had these Clash skills as the cavalry skills that they could run and get the attack and speed debuff neutralization, and finish skills being absolutely insane and opening up a whole new can of worms, I feel like. And speed preempt kind of is that niche skill that you run for fun, pretty much, I feel like. But yeah, these were really insane.
The thing I loved about this CYL, and let's just not think about Tiki here. I loved the synergy between Seliph and Crom. I thought that was a really neat thing that they did. That was probably my favorite part of this Choose Your Legends. As for the skills, and the units are clearly 5-star. The skills I loved. I have to ask though, I can't understand why we haven't seen another tactic skill. That's crazy to me. What do you think the next effect will be for the tactic skills?
I think maybe attack tactic with true damage or something, like treachery. That would be insane. But like I told you, they probably forget about these skills all the time. Clearly.
It really feels that way, and This is a 4-star bunch. They're really good. I liked all of them. Chill Defense Res 3 was... I mean, do you remember when this came out? Like, was this the first Tier 4 B skill?
Yeah, this was a big thing because then a lot of units could score higher in Arena. And I feel like Duo Nina herself was kind of a sleeper unit, I feel like, because she's still really good. It's just that she lacks some of the things, but her Kanto is insane, and her duo skill is also absolutely amazing. So I think she has aged pretty well, and I still see her from time to time in Ether Raid's offense and in the Chaos season. But obviously Kanto control kind of kills her whole thing, but still very good unit overall and insane skills.
I think she died a lot to the arena enjoyers who wanted their max scoring units, and so I killed her off for that her skill. Let's move on to Gen 7 because, I mean, this is way too early to really talk about the meta impact, but we're gonna do it anyway. If you haven't already seen PM1's breakdown of the Brave units this year, you should definitely go check it out. It is incredibly detailed, along with gameplay and builds and recommendations for who wants what unit. I really loved it, and I've watched it several times. I think you should as well. I cannot believe how creative this batch was. Are they getting better at designing units?
I really feel like, because these, I really like the new terrains that we have in the stone terrain and the flame terrain. Kind of wish that Goldwig had the flame terrain and it was not an edible skill, because it kind of kills the uniqueness of Goldwig, like Corrin has got. So I really love these terrains, and I think it is going to be shaping up the FEH metagame for the upcoming times and the upcoming months. And these units I feel like are just the start. So having an insane Farsiv unit, having Sorin with assigned decoy is just absolutely insane. And we also have units like Brave Golvig who can player phase so well as part of the Choose Your Legend. So I think it just has a unit that everyone can, want for their barracks.
Divine Veins are both they're their own counters. I think that is fantastic that they designed that in. I cannot believe they did such a good job. I'm absolutely amazed with this. Tea Time Ira is probably slept on, because every year that banner is slept on because folks are just dying to see what is coming up with the Brave units. This is clearly 5 stars though. We need to move on onto the skills though, because I think these skills push the meta more than the units. That is a way too early take on this, but I am blown away. What is your favorite skill from this batch?
I think my favorite is definitely Gambit, because for the longest time we have been incentivized to run lower cooldown specials, and now we finally have a skill that can be benefited by the higher cooldown specials. And it really gives you bang for the buck, so I really like Gambit a lot more, even though I don't feel like it is going to be as meta-influential as Flared Sparrow setting up the flame terrain and being the best in slot for so many cavalry and flying units, and Flow Desperation also being an amazing skill for a lot of flying and cavalry nukes like Summer Female Shez.
I'm having trouble with Flare because I was disappointed that it didn't have piercing, but it's still a really good skill, I'm really happy that we finally have a special that mages can run for Arena that is not like Raptured Sky. So I'm pretty happy with that, even though it doesn't really have the damage reduction piercing and it's not like most insane special. I'm still pretty satisfied with the design aspect of it. In terms of the healing. Is this the first time that Cavs got a better version of a skill than infantry in the flow desperation?
I feel like this was the month where they are giving the treats to flying and cavalry units, because we have Flared Sparrow that is flyer and cavalry logged. I cannot remember the skills that are like flyer and cavalry logged. A lot of skills are just logged away from them instead of being locked to them, I feel like. So yeah, I'm really happy with the new tools that they have, and Desperation 4 is also really amazing, but I think a lot of times it is going to be competing with a lot of other slot B skills, but I'm really happy that we finally have Flow Desperation, and we finally have something like Gambit for which is available to any kind of sword, lance, or axe unit.
I have utterly slept on a Counter Roar 4. I've been doing Sims the last couple of days, and I think it is comparable to Dragon Wall. Without the AoE reduction, obviously, but it is absolutely fantastic on most beast units, which is crazy because, I mean, that's one of the things that the Armored Specials did, was it unlocked the beast skill. You could run something other than Hardy Fighter. Counter Roar 4, don't sleep on that skill. It is absolutely phenomenal. Last question here, and this is more on Soren's functionality. Are we moving into a new phase of saviors with Soren? Are we going to see more of this?
I think it definitely opens up the things that you can do, because save units just have the low mobility, and now you can actually make like infantry units, cavalry units, flying units, units with actual mobility into a savior, and also nuke with them. So that's something that Soren can open up, and that is to be seen how influential he's going to be. From my testing, I found him so much in Summoner Duels. I think he's definitely going to be the Summoner Duels unit out of this batch, and he's going to be aging pretty well there, because you can just bring a near save now. So just breaking the restrictions with Brave Soren is my favorite part, because now the rules do not even matter for Ether Raids Chaos and Summoner Duels. So I absolutely love what Brave Soren does and how it plays into him. And, you know, his character, basically.
He is the unit that's probably grown on me the most. I wasn't sure about his nuking ability. And as soon as I saw how hard he hit, I was like, okay, this unit may actually take the meta by storm. Getting us back on track, though, the skills here, this is clearly a 5-star badge. I mean, that's... there's nothing much more to say. Which brings us to our total. So we've got Gen 7 at a 52, and we've got Gen 6 at a 47. But I don't feel like this really tells the story. I want to break this down into units versus skills. And we come up first here and look at, now this is the entire year view that I wanted to bring us into perspective. This is basically looking at preference weapon creep though. This is, all of these units are good because they have preference weapons versus other units. And it's interesting to see this slow down. Looking at this whole page, do you feel like this is accurate?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's pretty accurate for the best units that we had in these batches. And nowadays we just have like more preference skills, so the power lies there. Brave Guldvig is a clear example where her weapon is not the greatest, but she definitely brings the uniqueness with her slot B skill.
Who's your favorite unit out of this new batch?
I think for me, my favorite unit has to be like, has to be Duo Asker, honestly, from Gen 7.
He's still really amazing. I enjoy using him quite a bit. So, and this is kind of coming into the meat of what I wanted to talk about. Let's move into the new skills. Essentially what we're saying with this 7-point jump is that there was a 30% jump in power creep. And that's huge. That is an enormous amount.
Yeah, a lot more things to consider, a lot more things to break down. So complexity creep is the thing which I would like to call this. A lot of times it's not even like the most powerful skill, it's just that they have longer descriptions. So you just have more things to read.
Oh my god, complexity creep. That is such a good word for that. How do you feel about IS pushing the meta through rearmed units and these must-have skills?
I think it can definitely help you just deck out your favorites a lot better now with the rearmed units. And with the skills, I think we're just seeing so many meta skills, one after the other. They're just absolutely working overtime when it comes to building the skills for like these units, and hoping that people use these skills on like rearmed units, because I know many whales do, and I think that whales can really benefit a lot more out of the rearmed units, because they can pretty much duplicate and skill bank the skills a lot more than a free-to-play player who's probably like gonna +1 merge or +2 merge a rearmed unit. So these new skills really go well with the rearmed units that we saw last year, and they're clearly building up even more on that.
I completely agree. What folks seem to ignore about rearmed units is the upfront cost. I like this view. This is good, but there's another way to look at this that really brought this home for me. And we're going to glance briefly at the full skill comparison between Gen 6 and Gen 7. And again, this is looking at the full year. I could not believe that there were this many more skills in Gen 7. Like how are you feeling about this?
I feel bittersweet. Like, it's good that we're having more skills because it's inevitable by a lot of units. But at the same time, it's just like a lot more things to go over and keep in mind. But I think it does help with the builds at the very least. But still, we do have a lot of homogeneous builds at this point. So I would really like a lot more skills that they've forgotten about, like the tactic skills and such. So I would really like to see even more skills, even though we just have so many skills. But it doesn't mean that every skill has to be like a 5 out of 5. It can be a 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. It at least opens up like more options. So I think I'm a bigger fan of that because like less builds can look like exactly the same because we pretty much have the best skills already for so many of the archetypes, like God Swords, for example. So straying off a bit from that can be helpful. It just gives more options and something that is more fun to play with. So I'm a big fan of more skills, honestly, even though it comes at a cost of complexity creep.
I feel like the floor for skills are so much higher in this generation. And basically saying that I think the worst skill in Gen 7 is better than the worst skill in Gen 6.
Absolutely, I definitely feel with that. I think except for Pegasus Flight. but yeah, I definitely feel like even the worst skill is like so much better than like Rouse 4 skill that we had in Gen 6. So for sure.
If you could remove one Gen 7 skill, which would it be?
Oh man, that is a tough question to ask, but I think I would definitely remove Guidance 4.
Really interesting. I have so much fun with that skill. It matches my playstyle very well, so that would hurt my feelings. But you might be right in that it might be better for the game.
We don't know. Gatekeeper Refine is coming, so I'm still on that copium.
It's any day now. Like, they have to nerf these things. What I've heard that I like the best is, and this would fit perfectly with Gatekeeper, but I feel like another unit as well is coming right after Tana comes. So everyone has a chance to summon for Tana again, and that's when they'll nerf it. So
absolutely, I can see that happening.
At what point is power creep too exhausting for new players, though?
I think we are already past that point because I don't think the power creep is necessarily too much for a new player, but I think it's just the mechanics and the new things that they have to learn, because it might be really daunting for them to just get into the game because we have so much like text to go with, and I think that's the part which kind of scares away the new players. Because FEH does have a problem like getting the new players. It's not attracting as many new players as other gacha games. So I think they probably need to have a better way of parsing these skills so that it is not daunting and overwhelming to read. Because I think that's where they are really lacking at the moment.
And again, you just hit it on the head with the phrase complexity creep. They really need to find some way to pull new players in. Thank you so much for breaking down all of this with me. Are there any final thoughts you have for how this generation went versus Gen 6?
I really feel like rearmed units were such a amazing design direction that they took, because people play FEH for their favorites, and I can even see most meta players like investing in their favorites in some capacity. So I'm pretty happy with that mechanic. I think for all of its faults and flaws, I think FEH can really hit the home with its design, and I think they clearly did that with rearmed units. So I'm really happy with that.
I mean, the takeaway here is keep doing what you're doing, but explain it better. So taking that away, again, thank you so much for being on the show. guys, if you haven't gone and subscribed or even become a member or super chatted PM1, I've got to tell you, he works so hard. He deserves every bit that he gets, and I highly encourage you to do that. As far as stuff that we're doing here, I just put out a Far Savior tier list, and if you're interested in that, please go check that out. If you like the content and want to support further, you can super chat or become a member. Members, you're absolutely amazing. Take care and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.